What's up, everybody? I'm Cody, this is the Mutant Menace, and X-Men #1 is out. We're going to talk about it. X-Men issue #1 was written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Leinil Francis Yu. It was inked by Jerry Alonguilan, colored by Sunny Go, and lettered by Virtual Calligraphy's Clayton Cowles, not to mention stellar design work by Tom Muller. So the issue opens with Xavier giving Scott his glasses for the first time that let him open his eyes without his powers obliterating whatever's in front of him. And this is kind of interesting because this kind of puts into our head, reminds us, Scott is technically like the first X-Man. He was Professor Xavier's little pet. He was, Professor Xavier's favorite, his teacher's pet, which, comes with great benefits. And also, you're probably going to get, thrown into hard shit a lot and be abused as a teacher's pet. And we all know how Scott's upbringing went after being recruited by Xavier. From there, we flash forward to the present where Storm and Cyclops are on a mission storming the final Orcas stronghold on Earth. They've been systematically taking out these bases, I guess, and I can't tell you how thrilled I was that this issue started with my two favorite X-Men of Storm and Scott together on a mission. I was so pleased with that, and it's really, really cool because from there we also see Magneto and Polaris come in, and when Magneto gets here, he makes this excellent move of ripping open the base to get inside and like pushing away all the rabble, as he calls them, and I will tell you right now, I'm not the biggest Leinil Francis Yu fan. His art is always a little stiff to me. Everyone looks action figure-y, and I've just never really been too big on it, but I will say this panel of Magneto that we get from him was just excellence. The coloring is beautiful too, and honestly, kudos to you and the colorist because, wow, I really felt that moment. We also get this hilarious line where Cyclops mentions that these apes all have PhDs when the scientists kind of inject that serum into them to transform themselves into these more bestial forms to take out the X-Men in a last-ditch attempt to defend their base. And that line was just very, like, Grant Morrison-esque to me, and it was hilarious. Loved that. And we see that the X-Men have been on a mission to come rescue these mutants that have been kept in stasis pods, and one of them reads a little different from the others, and when she comes out, Storm kind of identifies her, you're from the Vault. And this is immediately evocative of the Children of the Vault from the excellent Supernovas run by Mike Carey, and with a lot of art by Chris Bacalo in that run. And she comes out, and she looks, to me, very similar to Serafina, who was a child of the Vault. She was a technopath with some tracking capabilities, and this costume is incredibly reminiscent of Serafina, and she has been, the Vault is coming up, and it just really makes you wonder, because the Children of the Vault were kind of like these atemporal beings that had kind of transcended humanity. They are not mutants, but they're kind of these advanced humans, and that kind of harkens to what we've seen at the end of House of X and Powers of 10 with these post-human people being the ones that rise from the human machine and mutant war. We see that the post-humans come out on top and kind of, cause the destruction of the world as they seek ultimate, godhood. So you have to wonder, and Polaris even says this is a post-human that we're looking at. This is huge because, these guys are pretty much villains to the X-Men because they're a threat to the whole world as we know it. So that was very interesting. And Blip, she just disappears before they can take her in. And, there's this whole conversation about, like, Polaris, like, should we go after her? And Magneto's like, hell yeah, we're going to go after her. And then Cyclops, being the general, the captain he is like, no, that's not the mission. We're going to get back on track and get these kids home. So I like that we're seeing that power dynamic here because Scott mentions if the council wants to do it, I'll do it. But that's not what I'm here for on this mission. So back on Krakoa, we see that Cecilia Reyes is checking in these new mutants that have been rescued from the stronghold of Orcas, and she's kind of, doing physicals, doing all the checkups, and we see some of Leinil Yu's art. A good example of some of his panels that get weird for me, it's the Leinil Yu smile, which creeps me out immensely. It doesn't creep me out quite as much as the Greyland grin does, but it's up there on the creepiness scale for me. We also see that Magneto's attained a kind of celebrity status, being celebrated by the youth as kind of this war hero, which is a far cry from the terrorist that he was seen as, from the humans' perspective for so long. Now, a really interesting thing to me is this small conversation that Scott has with Polaris where he's talking about, we finally have a home. We have to find a place to keep kids safe, which I wanted to be a dad for so long, and when my kid was born, it was just this terror that he was under, and I felt racked with guilt and stress, and he's like, now we're home, we can build, we're a family, we have each other. And Polaris expresses a kind of uncertainty there. She's like, do you believe this? And he says every single word of it, which shows his undying dedication and belief in the cause. But on Polaris' side, is that cynicism, or is that just a genuine, kind of foreshadowing? Does Polaris really, she's coming from this angle of uncertainty. We saw that Magneto was explaining to her the process of the resurrection. She seems to be kind of this observer that I feel like we should take note that Polaris is kind of it's almost us looking in and us constantly asking do we believe this? Will this hold? So I think Polaris has been, interestingly enough, she doesn't get too much screen time, but she feels almost like a ride-along to me because she's kind of looking at all of this carefully, like I think a lot of us are. We get a couple pages touching base with Orcas, who we see is still in operation in space, where the Forge has kind of been, not dismantled, but definitely took a hit in the pages of House of X, and we see that there's just kind of this mass grave of the fallen soldiers and operatives of Orcas, and there's this interesting line said by their leader, just look at what they have done, which stands in stark contrast to look at what we have done, or you look at what we have built, with Magneto and Xavier gazing upon, the success and productivity of Krakoa. This stands in stark difference here on Orcas, where they're counting their losses and using that. So I appreciated that kind of juxtaposition put in front of us there, and we kind of just like get a refresher for what Orcas stands for, what they're made up of, that we learned in the pages of Hoxpox, and here we meet this guy who's a big deal. His name's Dr. Devo, I think Dr. Devo, and as far as I can tell, there's no relation to the band that hit superstardom in 1980, but maybe this guy is played by Mark Mothersbaugh. So we see that Omega Sentinel is still around, talking to him like, we could not have lost you. It's bad enough that, that Dr. Gregor, has been compromised, I'm assuming mentally, after losing her man during House of X, and she's like, we couldn't afford to lose you, like, the pack needs you, Orcas needs you. From there, we're kind of introduced to the Summers house, which is on the blue area of the moon, and honestly, there's so much happening here that makes me so happy. It's hard to take time on either one or even contain it, but there's a lot going on. So much that I love here. We get to see father-son moments with Corsair and Scott gifts him with a Krakoa flower that'll take him right back here to his home to be with his family, no matter where he is in the universe. We see the layout of the house with Wolverine, Jean, and Cyclops' rooms connecting, which is taking Twitter by storm, and with good reason. I freaked the hell out. I mean, I've wanted those receipts for like a poly situation for a long time, and I feel like we're a step closer. Their rooms are the only ones that connect. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's only among them. We get to see Vulcan being so extra, which is hilarious. He gave me so much life in this issue, just talking about like this fire that is making the steak is just like me. We're burning with the heat of 1,000 suns. He's just like being ridiculous, and I loved it. And I know he uses the word inferno, and every time we X fans see the word inferno, we're all like totally triggered. But like, it makes you want to go back and count every person who's specifically used the word inferno when describing something. Hepzibah pretty much hitting on Rachel, just giving me life. I love when she's like, do you always wear spikes, or is this a special occasion? And Rachel's answer is yes, which is just like lost my shit at that. You wash dishes here apparently by Krakoa spitting goo on it that like eats the bacteria. It's kind of like feeding Krakoa, which is kind of funny. Gross but funny and oddly kind of cute. I don't know. So needless to say, you guys, I loved this issue. I absolutely adored it. It had so many moments that were so fun. It had creepy elements. It was packed with foreshadowing, the whole thing with the child of the vault, what we see with Alia Gregor and her ominous message at the end. I'm super enticed. We are in a great time to be an X-Men reader, an X-Men fan. One more thing, you guys. I know there's probably a lot that I didn't bring up in this video that you probably wanted to talk about, and I understand that. These issues are coming out every week, and I'm trying to get my videos up promptly so that we can do this and discuss in the comments below. But guess what? If I didn't mention it here in this video, I'm probably talking about it across the socials. So why don't you give me a follow? I'm at the Mutant Menace everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join the party. We're talking about a lot more stuff and a lot more in-depth on those pages. So please give me a follow. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. I will be back. Stay spiky.
Hey, 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 hey.